call the meeting to order. We have a quorum here. The first item of business is approval of the minutes from the last meeting. I assume everyone's received them. Are there any comments, changes, corrections? Anyone wants to add?
I had one on the pickleball court request for 330, I thought I asked for 330, 325.
Yes.
That's in there, that's,
Oh, okay, I just saw it on the front thing.
yep, it's
Okay.
been amended, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Never mind.
I think Savory Moore's name is misspelled. Did it say V-E-R-Y?
Yeah, it's like the Avenue, yeah.
Sorry.
This is the only town in America, I thought they'd get it right.
Nope. You're lucky day.
Now, were you named after the avenue, or the avenue named after you were?
The Avenue's older than I am, by a little bit.
Do I hear any other corrections or additions? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as written.
Motion's made and
Second.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Guys have it. All right, I'm gonna skip over the old business at this point and go right to the, there are no bills payable. I'm gonna go right to the discussion of potential projects. I mentioned in the agenda that there's a potential for numbers to change at the meeting. I wanted to make sure that that was in there because I had heard from Dan that there may be, that he had sharpened his pencil a little bit and there may be some slight changes. So I didn't want it just to be cast in stone as that was the total amount of money. So, taking the projects, and since Dan is here, I expected he was gonna be maybe a few minutes late. That's good.
The concert went efficiently at the elementary school, so I'm very.
So I guess, first of all, let me start, before I get into each of the individual projects, the present fund reserves that we have, that as of December, that I had for unreserved funds was $1,300,725.16. And this is taken off the spreadsheet sent to us by Sue Mobley. I asked her to get me information directly and she didn't. So I ended up extracting it from the spreadsheet. For historic preservation, we have $467,672.18. These are in reserves. For affordable housing, we have $659,431.18, of which $125,000, which we voted last meeting at last annual town meeting, has not been taken out. Open space and recreation, we have, and I don't know why we have $143,561.18, but
That says that's a bond payment.
no, that's,
That's how he's.
no.
That's in the fund right now?
It was, in the present fund reserve, she actually has open space and recreation is $143,561.18, which shouldn't be, but it is. That's how she has it. So, I ended up going into the, basically, and then we have an estimated bond payment of $300,000. It was $330,000 last year, so I just made an estimate of $300,000.
Can I ask about that on the bond? Is it a fixed rate or is it a fluctuating rate? Because that may make a big difference with what's gone on in the past year.
I can tell you in that same email I got today, for fiscal year '23, the bond payment is $331,400.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you, perfect.
so it's,
331.
And it was 330 last year, you said, so about the same.
right, so it hasn't changed
So
much.
it has to be fixed, yeah.
So, that means we're gonna have to take a little bit more out of the unreserved fund for that.
So she-
But-
So let me see if I understand this. We're taking everything that's there in open space and recreation,
So
plus some out of unreserved to
So-
pay the bond?
then I have the next line down is if A through E are approved, A through being Union Society, Pickleball, Adirondack Shelters, Nature's Classroom, and Avenues of Honor. If they're all approved, the remaining funds end up being, for the bond payment, I took the entire 143,561. I added that up so that I came up to 300,000. And so that's where the 156,438 came from. Obviously, it's going to have to be higher than that, so
Yeah.
it'll be more in terms of what's in unrestricted. Pickleball is 330, 325, and this is all from unreserved. Adirondack Shelters will be $48,000 unreserved. Nature's Classroom will be $57,000 unreserved. So that will leave us with a total amount in unreserved funds of approximately $565,400. With the update that Mary just gave us, it'll be probably $31,000 less.
Right.
So,
And $300,000
And 300,
more. Because she says there's 1.6. You're looking at 1.3. Mary's figures as of today were
Right.
1.6.
right. Yes.
Do you mind, Chairman? I was just at Recreation last night. We were just curious. We tried to figure out what year for the bond, for the, how many years. We think we figured 2017. Do you have any, do you know?
Right now, we're in, this bond payment this year will be year 4 out of 10.
Really? It was built in, they played in 2008.
They played in 18. That's what we were told last night.
Yeah, I thought it would have been 2017.
18, 19, 20.
It was
21,
probably
22.
fiscal 18 that the
Oh.
funds
Okay.
started.
So
Right.
it's year 4. Okay, thank you.
So that leaves us with, a fair balance in our unrestricted funds, which I think where we want our monies to be as much as possible is in the unrestricted funds, so that we can apportion them to whatever. Historic preservation, we start off with 467,672, with Union Society at $20,000 and Avenues of Honor at $82,500. That brings remaining funds in historic to approximately $365,000. Affordable housing, we started off with $659,431. The number to the right of what I presented was 534,431, because that's less the $125,000 which has not been expended for habitat at
Yep.
this point. Open space and recreation, there are no remaining funds, and the estimated bond payment is taken care of in the above numbers. So, we have some monies available. We don't have unlimited monies available. But hopefully this gives everyone an idea as to what we might be able to expend this year and what we might not be able to expend this year. So, moving from that to,
Bob, I got one question real quick
Yep.
before we go on any further. In the unreserved, you have the 143,561 that's actually in the open space and recreation slot. Should that be coming out of the 1,000,003 that you have listed here, or should that be coming out of the open space fund?
no, if you look at the unreserved, I actually show
space
bond
and
payment,
recreation.
top bond payment is 143,561.
Correct, I get that, but is that what's in the open space fund right now?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm basically zeroing that out.
Correct, but so in a sense, you're also taking it out of unreserved.
No, he's adding the two together. He's adding
To
the
get to
two.
300,000, correct. But
Yep.
there's 143 in the
Actually-
open space fund right now,
Actually, he's right. Because
because then if you're taking it out of the unreserved, then the open space fund should still have 143,000 in it.
Right, so,
Okay.
so he's right, so we'll end up having approximately or $700,000.
Should be,
In unreserved.
it should be 708, my calculations are right, it should be just over 708.
Right.
In unreserved.
And unreserved plus,
After we're done.
Plus
Plus the
Mary.
Plus
Mary's
plus
extra
Mary's
three.
three.
Oh, so that puts
Thank
back
you.
that's over a million.
So, you know,
But I
we're,
don't understand how you got your number you got.
we're good from that perspective. We're not
He's taking it from here.
destitute,
Yep.
But he's also
as
taking it
we
out of
were
reserves fund.
a few
Okay,
years
so
ago.
Yeah.
We took it
All
out
right,
twice.
all right,
We weren't
gotcha.
totally out of money.
If it comes out of
A
here,
few
it's
years
gonna
ago,
stay
we
in
were
one and the
totally
other.
out of money.
I was doing a little happy dance when I got that email today, I got to admit.
We were,
So let me ask you, what you're saying, based upon what Mary's uncovered and all of this, after funding everything this year, we will still have 1 million in the unrestricted,
If the numbers are correct.
if the number's
if
correct.
the numbers are correct.
Yeah. And Mary's got the most updated.
Well,
numbers.
by my math, based on what I had done
They're saying
with,
after.
I came up with 870, 847 in the unrestricted.
Because you weren't counting the 143.
I wasn't putting the 143 back.
He
Right.
took the 143 out twice.
Oh.
So now you
Right.
gotta take that number, you gotta add on Mary's 3, which
If they
brings you
add
to
on
8,
this,
and then you gotta
didn't
add
they
on the
add to
150.
any of these oth- And it wouldn't have been broken down and added to the others as well?
I
So it's
don't
a
know, I don't know how the
million
funding works. and how
So-
they-
I got
so-
a question for you.
Yep.
So Mary came in with a higher number here, $300,000 more. But if that was a total add-in to CPC, wouldn't these other numbers have gone up? Maybe not as much, but somewhat?
How does it disperse?
They should be, because there's a 10% withhold for open space, for recreation.
All right,
I
so
mean,
in
open
addition to
space,
what she's talking about
affordable
then.
housing, and historic preservation, so there's.
Because you only got the number for the unreserved
got the
amount,
it
right?
dep- it de-
Right.
It
And it
depends,
said mine was still the 143.
it depends on whether.
But maybe she didn't look.
No, okay,
Yeah,
I'm just
it
curious.
depends on whether that was a state distribution or not.
Okay. Clear as
So
mud.
it's 1,014,408.
After,
14,408.
After
So-
adding the 143 back in.
Oh, okay,
So,
if that's if the A through E passes.
okay.
If it
Right.
gets passed,
Right.
if we vote to approve A through E.
so, this is a ballpark
I was
estimate in
just
terms
trying
of,
to close up, I don't know about the union.
in terms of numbers. It's,
Well, that
You know,
doesn't, that comes out of their own funds.
obviously,
get it,
the
but
one that I sent to you
$300,000,
guys,
that's a lot of money.
the first of the week, was sort of confusing, so that was when I went back and tried to do this basic spreadsheet and come up with a different look at it. But we basically have 6 projects before us tonight, and I'll take them in order. I have them listed down at the bottom of our sheet as A through F. The projects with requested funds, Union Society in South Carver, or Union Society of Carver requested money for $20,000 for the repair of the one spire, total reconstruction of one spire. And I think we've had it well explained to us. Is there any other, are there any other questions?
Aren't we required to get 3 estimates? Did we?
Not under $50,000. I talked to Sue, so that's all set.
And we ran into that last year, so,
Last year was 60,000.
right.
So
So we, I wanted to make sure that we were on top of that. Any other questions? Do I hear a motion to approve this request?
I'll make that motion to approve the $20,000 request.
I'll second it.
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The next project is a pickleball court adjacent to the Marcus Atwood House in South Carver. It's for $330,000, $330,325. Oh, I forgot to mention, Union Society will be taken out of historic reserves. Pickleball will be taken out of open space and recreation funds. Do we-
And unreserved.
Unreserved.
Yes.
Yeah. the vote.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Was there any talk at the rec meeting about cameras and security down there? And the reason I'm asking is because on Facebook yesterday,
Mary
Yeah, I did shoot
Ross.
myself in the foot, you're right.
oh, you did.
No, you didn't,
But
because
it
it's
is
real.
realistic, is
Absolutely.
realistic. And there's vandalism at the brand-new ice skating rink, which is uptown.
I did just talk to the police, though, it wasn't, I need to talk to you, it wasn't vandalism at the crates.
Oh, no,
No, but the
the
trash-
rink wasn't
trash
damaged.
was left.
No, I just had a meeting with,
Okay,
it's not vandalism, but there was drinking.
Oh, I read this.
okay.
Yeah,
And Mary, you
Mary
did
wrote it,
not.
so she doesn't need a copy.
I did, honestly, I didn't think it was Mary
you
that
might want to
posted it.
reprint.
She signed it, Mary.
She signed it, Mary
did.
Rose.
Oh, shit, I didn't read it.
She did, she
Yeah.
guilty
So
as
who really
charged
didn't
on
read it,
that
Fran?
one.
They literally had it open one day.
Well, and it's just, it's funny because the first month that it was filled with water, there was no evidence of
yeah.
anyone
Yeah.
even ever being there.
Yep.
It was really just trying to, a message to everyone that there are trash barrels. Use them.
And here's my,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you've got cameras there. And I think it's important that, we think about the maintenance and security. Because again, this recreation area is down by a pond in the middle of nowhere,
Off-site.
in the pitch black, not uptown, next to the EMS station, and, and I don't wanna put this money in 5 years from now, have it a mess with no funds to fix it.
And I would say, I would agree with you. The cost was a lot for the ones at the playground because it was tied in directly to the police station. I am sure that there are those there would be a recording, that if we found something
but
damaged,
I know, but honestly, I would rather pay more upfront and have it tied into the police station, so if someone's down there vandalizing, they can send a cruiser down, as opposed to, we go down there, we go, oh, wow. The fence has been banged into with a car or whatever.
And then they're outside
Let's look
looking
at
for
the
somebody.
camera and see if we can figure it out.
They don't watch them, though, it's not being watched.
So what you're saying is there's not gonna
I'm
be
just being
any
honest, I just met with the
security.
police.
You're just, but see, you're making my point. There's not gonna be any security down in an area that is very isolated.
it's
And I
after the
want
fact security. They would have a
It's after
recording
the
of
fact.
it. It's after the fact.
I want the pickleball courts, but I just don't think, I think that there needs to be a study done. Where is the Council on Aging? What are they gonna do to, because that is on the list, and that absolutely has to be addressed. And as our citizens do age, it's gonna become even more important. And so that is my concern about this, that we put this money in. And like we've done, and I've talked before, buy this. We need this piece of land. We're gonna do this, blah, blah, blah. And we buy it, and we have it, and it sits there. Or we buy it, and 5 to 10 years in, it's no longer usable. So, I
sort
just,
of agree with you, Fran. I've been looking for a long-range plan for,
I would
you know,
rather.
10 years out. What do you expect this to look like? And not that we can do it all today, but
Right.
where do you go next year and the
Right.
year after
We
that?
need a
So the
plan.
overall plan of what you want it to be in the end. I'm not opposed to the pickleball court, but what else are you gonna do? And how are you gonna fit all of that in there? You still have a parking issue. Where are you gonna park cars? Even now, where are you gonna park cars? There's not much parking there.
Well,
But I'm not sure
actually,
that
we
this
had
is-
the original plan, which we can follow since we do have
Right.
pictures of
Yeah,
it.
no, but, so that was available, but 10
created-
years from now,
created
what
a lot of
else are we gonna
parking.
add? You know, what's the end result of the whole thing? I'd like to see something that we just do every year, you know, so we did that this year, next
Like a
year we're
master
gonna,
plan.
yeah, master plan of what's
Yeah,
gonna
and this
be
isn't
down there.
something new. This is something I have been asking for
Yep.
5 or 6 years.
Operation and maintenance plan for the project.
Right, yeah, and,
Well,
you
we've
know,
already said that maintenance, the recreation budget will take care of.
Between the budget and revolving account, maintenance will be handled through that.
Well,
I
that's what
think
you
she
were
was
gonna pay
talking
for
more
out
of
of
a
the user
generalized.
fees, right?
Oh.
Yeah,
Other towns
we have
do that.
an
And I'm-
operation,
No, I know
we have a
you
budget and a
Probably
account
not
now that
enough
we.
to take care of
And
everything.
I'm-
I would
and
be
I'm not-
most
I'm
willing,
not-
Fran, to talk with the police and find out if it's possible to connect. You know, I
Yep.
don't know how many miles away it is.
yep,
The
Being
thing,
the technological
about
wizard I am.
any kind of security is gonna be more or less after the fact unless you have 24-hour guards
Right, you're
on
not
any
gonna
piece of
sit there
property.
And that's
even
not
if
what
they
I'm
see
looking
you,
for,
You're gonna be
obviously.
gone before they ever
Exactly.
get
And
there.
Exactly.
I'm not sure that the CPC can answer these routine,
No, we can't.
Questions.
So like I said, we have police,
You know.
it's hooked up to the police station right now, and we still,
I mean,
no one caught
I think-
what just happened, so.
I
yes,
think-
but this
I
is the
think
committee
the-
that does the funding, and
think-
this is not the first time we've had the same discussion about this for many years. And what I haven't seen is I haven't seen the rec committee come back with a plan
A plan for that whole property?
for a recreation, a long-term, this is not an open meeting.
Okay. Are you the chairman?
I'm sorry. Mr. Chair?
go ahead, Fran, you were speaking?
I didn't outspeak, I just raised my hand.
I have been looking for several years for a long-term rec and open space plan that would go hand in hand with the funding that is being asked for through the Community Preservation Committee. Because to buy a piece of property, whether it's on Savory Ave under open space or Church Street, because we're gonna build ball fields there, or down at Lakeview, where we've got a beautiful piece of property, but nobody can, and I'm not talking about the conservation property, I'm talking about the property that the CPC funded with the Buzzards Bay Coalition. A beautiful piece of property with no parking to get there and enjoy it. So that's what I'm looking for as a long-term member of this board who cares about this town and our long-term plan for the town.
I understand that, Fran, if I could just address that. That had nothing to do with recreation. I know because it's a walking activity, you are recreating, but it has nothing to do with the recreation committee. We were not a part of the coalition. We weren't.
You were a part of Church Street. You were a part of, no, I'm sorry, it was a joint application between open space and rec. Absolutely, because the idea was to put soccer fields down there. And Savory Ave, go back and look at the
Well,
meetings.
it's
It was
before
a-
our time.
And
Way
it may be,
before us.
it may be, but Mary, that's why for the past 5 years, I've been asking for a plan. Because after sitting on this committee for many years, I've seen that it's by the project. And it shouldn't be by the project. It should be an overall master plan, just like we have a master plan for the town. We should have a master plan for recreation. And we're putting more time and effort and money into the recreation committee, and I think that's a great thing. But I still think we need a plan.
I think what you're, in order for that to happen, recreation would have to stop being a committee and start being a department. We're a 5-member board that meets once a month, and I understand what you're asking for, but we don't have the resources to put together a master plan for the town. What happened?
Not a master plan for the town.
Well,
It may
the
not
master
be
plan
just-
for recreation
just
for the town is
recreation.
what you're
It could be a
asking for.
whole Bunch of committees that get
If
together.
I may, just 'cause
Not just
I've had my
recreation.
hand up for a couple rotations here.
No, I'm sorry, I
That's
didn't mean
okay.
to, didn't mean to jump ship.
No. To address kind of what we've all been talking about with different projects, this one included. One thing that we could consider, and I don't know how long our arm of the law is, but we've all had a system in place where there would be somebody assigned to liaise a given project. But I think that that's something that maybe we might discuss, adding a little bit more teeth to in terms of how we go about being a more proactive part of those projects rather than just give the money to, but in fact, have some agreement between, that department, that body, that organization, and just hope that things work out. I think that we have the purse strings. So depending on how we decide we want to disperse the funds, just like any other contract, there could be appropriate conditions. I'm not saying, that they have to live by our leave, but, in terms of, hey, great idea, but we want a maintenance plan. Hey, how are you gonna support that? Obviously, maybe a given proposal can't cover all those things, but just like any good community project, how are we gonna roll in and cultivate that relationship once the money's been spent? We wanna have sort of some systems in place. We've talked about some of those ideas in the past. We just, if it's okay if I say we just haven't always followed through with those things because it's a lot to handle and there have been, rotating administrations and things like that, so, there's no one person here that could be blamed, and in fact, there's no really, there's a human nature factor involved, of course, as well, but, I think one thing that we can do is just have some conditions that have a little bit more, meat to them.
Protocol.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's what I'm asking for.
Well, we have sort of a mechanism there anyways, because we have committee member oversight, where we assign a committee member to actually work with the proponent on the project. And, that's what we've been doing with most projects up until Milanowski came. And then when Milanowski left, we've gone pretty much back to that. But, we basically have people who are able to oversee and ask questions and do the prodding for various things that is of interest to this committee. Whether we're as active as we want to be on that, I'm not sure, but it seems like we've got the ability to do. We definitely have the ability to do the oversight.
For clarification on memories of the Church Street and Savory, didn't the town already own that land? I know they owned Savory.
No,
No,
no.
they did not.
They did not, we bought that.
Didn't own either of
Okay.
those.
That I remember, yeah.
And it was a joint application on both of those between Open Space and Rec. So the idea on Savory,
So what does that mean? Who?
joint application between the Rec Committee and
Who was on-
Conservation, I believe.
Who was on the rec committee back then? I don't.
Oh, I don't know.
John-
You'd have to look it up.
John
Ranella?
John Ranella was doing the Church Street. I don't know,
John was on, I think, for Savory too, but I don't
Yeah,
think
I'm
he
not-
was.
I'm not sure what
Yeah.
he was on Savory.
Yeah, it was Concom and Rec, and that's neither here nor there. I guess what I'm saying is, because of the amount of funding that we have put into Open Space and Rec, the town, and because these type of projects do fall under the purview of the Recreation Committee, what I'm hoping is that as a committee, and I know you guys have gotten more people on the committee in the past 2 to 3 years, and the committee has begun to really come together and be a force within town, and I think all of that is great. But I would like the committee to talk amongst themselves and say, hey, look, the projects we're asking for are not only expensive, but they're gonna make an impact on this town, so let's do it right. Let's ask for funding to hire a consultant or someone, just like they were going to for the, to engineer the soccer fields,
Didn't we?
and look at the town and do a study for recreation and where we need to go. What is working, what isn't working. And so when you ask for the projects, it makes sense because we're walking towards,
Can I throw
go.
something in here? So not only should rec, I think, be involved in that committee, but maybe somebody from Concom who's also got a stake in the game, no matter
Yep.
what you're planning to do in town. So maybe pick some people from different committees to form like a subcommittee that just works on doing this and getting an engineer in here, and you know what you people want, you know what you people want. There may be other committees in town that say, hey, we can do this or we can't. But
Problem
maybe
is,
you could come up with a
one of the
plan.
our big needs, frankly, going forward, if you're looking for a plan, is we need more fields. There is no space.
No, I understand that, but you've got a big project you wanna put down there.
tons of space.
Right.
And there's a lot of land there between those two things. What's the overall purpose in the end? What's it gonna look like 5 years from now?
Where is there space to put fields?
Savory and Church Street, we own both of them.
We there was a feasibility study done for that, and it was too much ledge. It was gonna be so outrageously expensive to try and remove the ledge.
Church Street too, I understand, and we're not, you're right, I'm sorry, I'm gonna
Yeah.
stop. That's my opinion.
I think anything we do should have a level of permanence, and that we should be getting what we paid for, and this shouldn't be a generational thing, and that letters of commitment should be involved for long-term maintenance, upkeep, and repair or replacement on all of our projects. Because you can't come back to us again. Again, the tennis court, we're looking to build over it. Did we get the nets we
Were you
paid
here
for?
40 years ago when it was built?
Did the town take care of it?
Nope.
Where was the commitment involved in that?
That was all on the town.
That's the town.
We're
But
the
everything
town.
ends up
We're
being
the
the
town.
town.
Did we
Even
get
your
the
rec
nets we
committee
paid
ends up
for
being
for
the town, because you're all part of the
playground?
town. I mean,
All right,
Well,
so,
because
so,
I
so I think we need,
understand
I think we need to,
Again, how
re,
much
re,
funding
I think we need to
do you have?
refocus and decide
Yeah.
on the pickleball court,
At the end of the day,
you know.
we were approached at Recreation by, and as you can see from the last meeting, we had a lot of local support. There is a lot of local support for this. Unfortunately, Recreation has a modest budget. We can't afford to do this stuff on our own.
Right.
CPC has the funding for it. This money is put aside for this specific purpose, okay? I think at the end of the day, let's let the town decide if they want to, in every one of your arguments, Fran, your argument, I think is perfectly valid. Everybody's argument is perfectly valid. Make it on the town meeting floor and let the town decide whether or not that they want to put this money into it. We have a maintenance plan. It's working. It's gonna work for the playground. It's gonna work for the ball fields. It's gonna work for everything. We've got money in our accounts. We're gonna budget ourselves for that. Let's let the town decide whether or not they want to go forward with this.
I don't disagree
I
with
I
that.
have a quick question, Bob. Are we voting recommendations, or are we voting to put on the warrant? Should, every application that came in should be going to the warrant, no?
No,
Only if we approve it?
only if we approve it.
And then does it go before the Board of Selectmen, or that's it, it goes directly from us to the warrant?
Goes from us to the warrant.
Okay,
Select board has no say.
gotcha, okay.
And the last thing I'll say is, at the end of the day, CPC controls the funds, but it is the town's money. And the town should have a right to decide how they want to spend it.
I don't
And like I
disagree
said,
with that.
there is a lot of popular support from within the town that wants to see this happen. It's killing two birds with one stone. It gets rid of an eyesore that's down there. We are working on addressing the parking situation down there. I've already talked to the Earth Removal Committee about getting the parking lot done. They said, as soon as, get your cart behind the horse instead of in front of it, and when you're ready, we'll talk about that, and they're more than willing to do the paving down there.
I was gonna say, I can't speak to previous committees before I was involved or before I lived in this town, but one of the things that I like about this current body is that we all have a proactive notion as to how we want things to go. And, whatever people did or did not do in the past, I think collectively, we've discussed options where we can collectively play a role in making sure that things move forward as we want, and with our recommendations and with our support in terms of not just creating spin or a narrative when it comes to town meeting, but, you know, having some of those frequently asked questions answered in lead of the presentation. I assume there's gonna be a presentation at town meeting for all these things, but I don't
There
know.
isn't. There generally isn't.
Okay.
Well, this is being put forward by the rec committee, correct?
This
Yes.
portion was yes.
So, the rec committee would.
We did the presentation for the
Do a
playground, if
presentation.
you remember. We did.
Right, if,
Right,
if,
so you're planning on doing one
Yeah.
for this as well, good.
you know, what I do is I get up and I
Meeting's a
say,
meeting.
you know, here are the projects.
Well, like I said,
Do you have any
if we needed to,
questions?
then we
If
would.
somebody has a question, then the proponent will get up and explain the project.
Gotcha.
All right, so I think,
Can I just say one more thing, Bob?
sure.
I just want to say, you know, whether I vote yes or no on this project, and again, I told you guys at the last meeting, and I mean it, I think it's a good project. I am concerned about the location for the reasons that I said, but I think Dan said it best, that what I'm trying to do, one of the things I'm trying to do is set the stage for going forward. For this committee and for, you know, how we handle these things going forward, that I don't want it to feel that the end argument should always be, well, let's take it to town meeting and let the people decide. Because I think as a committee, it's our responsibility for the oversight of these projects.
Yes, it is.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
All right, any other comments? So do I hear a motion to move forward on pickleball court for $330,000, $325?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
No, I expect that you two will have to abstain as you're presenting the project.
Why?
Like, well, Dan is probably not gonna vote on his projects, because it would be unethical to present the project and vote on.
We don't have a monetary stake involved in this.
It's your request, so it is a
Well,
monetary.
We're requesting it for the,
monetary stake
we're requesting for the town, we're not
$330,000.
requesting for personal reasons, we're
Well, you're
requesting for the town.
This request is coming from the rec committee, is it not?
Mary, when
Yeah.
did you abstain
I'm-
for the
I-
And
playground?
there, so there is a
I don't
monetary
think so.
stake of $330,000.
But not personal monetary stake, I'm not
Not
personally
personal.
gaining from this at all.
I don't know.
I'm just saying that
Whatever.
it would be unethical to vote, in my opinion.
Well, I'll leave it up to the
on a
committee,
project
I'll
that
disagree
you're
with you, but I'll leave it up to the
voting
committee to
for.
decide that. I mean, like I said, conflict of interest is a personal thing, not a committee thing. Just because you know, we sit on the committee, Mary's an at-large member, she's not even a member representative.
No, but I was the presenter, and that's what he's saying.
Actually, I was, but thank you.
Okay.
That's right, she was the original presenter.
All right, so,
Bob, that's your
That's your call,
decision,
Bob.
and no arguments either way.
I don't really see, I don't really see a conflict myself. I don't see it as being, I see them as presenting a common proposal from the rec committee. But, you know, I don't know that, since we have designated representation by statute, from all the various boards in town. I'm not convinced that anyone needs to totally recuse themselves from voting.
Have they already voted on the project to bring it forward here?
Within our
With
own
our
committee?
Within your own committee, as the rec committee, is this being done under the auspices of the recreation committee?
Well, recreation
Yes.
put forth the article, put forth the project, yes.
So I'm not seeing,
But the other two times that I presented the same proposal, different figures, I was allowed to vote. That, I don't know. Again,
I'm not
that's-
seeing a definitive conflict, so I'll allow the vote. So motion was made and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
The motion passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 to 1. Next proposal is for item C, the Adirondack shelters on the Cole property. That's for 2 shelters on the Cole property. And I think Dan, we handed out a whole bunch of information at the last meeting. Does anybody have any other questions of Dan?
I do have a quick update, and I will for another one as well. As promised, some of my estimates were based on material costs a few months ago, and material costs have gone down, and I've continued to shop around for new ways of procuring material, non-commercially and commercially, and local people that have their own trailer mills and things like that have shown interest in this project, and so I've been able to actually cut the project by $9,000.
Wow.
So it has gone from 48,000 to 39,000.
Wow,
That's significant.
that's good.
So this sort of goes to answering some of people's concerns in terms of, wanting to make sure that these are long-term projects and nothing happens to them. You're looking at somebody who's literally going to put blood, sweat, and tears into this project like I physically have with others. So, it matters to me just as much as any of you that this is something that not only is something that lasts a long time, but something that the town can be proud of for a long time. So, yes.
Given the fluctuation in the materials costs, would it be smarter to have a little wiggle room and say not to exceed 40,000, something like that?
Well, part of the other, it's not solely for materials that I was able to save money. I also looked into insuring the project and things like that, and different contractors that I've looked at, come to find we can do it for a lot less expensive if it is strictly in-kind labor, and
Okay.
in terms of permitting and stuff like that. So it's, I made it clear with the different contractors that have agreed to help, you're not making any money. So this has to be for the love of town and the hate of me, that
Okay.
you do this project, and so that's,
Whatever works.
so that's why the significant, and you'll find a similar drop in price with another project as well, so.
And you're comfortable with the 39,000, that you'll be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish?
I am, I've built bigger for less, myself
Okay.
personally.
Because I was kind of going where Mary was going.
I know.
It's always better to have more money and return it than not
Or
have
not
enough.
use it.
And-
So part of this also is also, the reason I work so hard to do this is because I like all the projects. And I didn't want to have any of the projects that I was bringing to the table get in the way of, any of the other projects. So this is sort of a team effort, as well, fiscally speaking, anyway.
Good.
So.
Okay.
Once built, will these be covered by the town insurance? I would expect that they become their town property, right?
They would be,
I would think.
but in terms of, we delved into it when I did the original presentation. Myself and others have literally created a town committee, the Carver Trail Conservation Stewards, to be the maintenance arm of this, and so, and we've already gotten into submitting a pretty sizable grant through Mass Trails for safety equipment, for maintenance equipment, and actually some training, some actual training that'll be, again, free to the public and all that, either through conservation itself, approved by conservation, or the Trail Conservation Stewards, and then some outfitters, including Audubon Society, is literally coming down themselves to do some of the training with us. So it's a really nice collective effort.
Can we get a letter of commitment?
From,
Well, I'm taking your word, but
yeah,
from the Trail and Conservation Stewards.
absolutely.
All right.
All right, any other questions? Do we hear a motion to approve the Adirondack shelters for $39,000?
I'll make the motion to approve the Adirondack shelters for 39,000.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's made and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
One abstention.
So
But we just said you could.
Seven.
vote.
Absolutely. This is my habit. So in terms of, it's what I've done. I didn't want to argue your point.
So,
I support your voting for it. Just in the past, any project I've brought, I have not, but I didn't want to be controversial.
so
I'm voting as
Just calling us controversial.
Yeah,
motion,
I'm saying,
believe me, I think I've been called worse.
I know I have.
motion passes 701.
Thank you.
Next one is Nature's Classroom for 44 Lakeview Street.
Oh, you jumped over Avenues of Honor.
I'm actually using the,
ABC.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. You said you were
my
moving
my
on to that.
spreadsheet.
So.
He's using a different one.
Oh, okay.
First thing, and Mary brought up something I was gonna bring up. We haven't really put a title to what it's gonna be called, but it cannot be called Nature's Classroom. It is, in functionality, in terms of the function of it, is an outdoor classroom. So whether it is, and I literally retyped an outdoor classroom.
Is that the name that's gonna be on the warrant?
I think, well, there's some copyright issues and things like that,
Oh,
so.
yeah. Yep.
So, and literally a good friend of mine was a camp counselor at a nature's classroom in Connecticut, and I totally forgot about that, so. it's just- But an outdoor classroom will be what it is, and just like the Lost Boot Bridge, it will not, I'll come back to this body to look for an appropriate name, like we did before. For it, I think is sort of, I don't know, the pattern of things as they've been in the past, so. Some pencil sharpening happened here as well. The pavilion has been reduced from 30,000 to 28. We had some discussion about the fence, and I wanted to be clear that the fence itself is not just a fence. It is actually going to be a different habitat monitoring apparatus. And so it's gonna serve a function, not just bordering the property and separating private from public land in a conservation-friendly way, but each post, or at least every other post, is going to be a monitoring box of some kind for some bird species. So, the reduced cost, and that went from 15 to 12. And the observation platform and resting benches, that dropped down to $4,000. And the stair and seasonal floating dock went to $6,000. Bringing the total down from 57,000 down to an even 50. That is the best I could do.
Yeah, and that's.
Well, if that's the best you can do.
I expect this will be covered under the town insurance as structures under town, I would expect.
Yep, and there are gonna be other bodies involved with, what goes on between this property, between the pickleball court property, between the COA's property and so forth. There is, at least from my perspective, there's been a cooperative nature, between these, which is one of the reasons why a couple of the structures are on this property to sort of take the load off of, what COA had been wanting and what Recreation had been trying to insert in with the pickleball court. This is sort of, again, an attempt to marry up the needs and the wish lists of these different bodies, so. Again, this is, I think it might have been asked by you, what was the long-term plan for the house and things like that? That is a separate. No, I just didn't want you to think I ignored that, but that's a separate item altogether that is not up to me, it's up to conservation, and it's up to, we talked about having a master plan and working with different entities that are bordering, not entities, of course, but, different groups that are bordering that property, so that we're all on the same page as to what it can be. But also, being that it is on a conservation property, there are some restrictions to use of that space so that it won't just, become a place to rent. It'll be a functional space for the town, for educational purposes, and perhaps a meeting space, and to promote green technology and conservation and outdoor ethics. So, yes.
We had a little discussion last night at our rec meeting about helping with this project regarding canoes or kayaks and stuff. And the discussion went around the expense of the insurance if the town has water features, you know, like boats and
Sure.
things. Have you guys had a chance to look into that? I know how busy you are.
Yeah,
Really,
yeah.
I get it.
I don't wanna speak out of turn with that, that's something that can easily be done depending on the body in charge of that. One of the co-bodies that is putting this forth is local scouts. And we have insurance when we do boating programs or when we do education programs. So if you have BSA certified instructors, for example, doing an American Canoe Association workshop or whatever, it would be covered under that insurance if that was a licensed instructor, which I am, and which others are, that would be doing it, for example.
Yeah, but I was just thinking for general recreation purposes. I didn't know if you had had a chance to look into it.
Not yet, I've looked into it, but again, I don't wanna speak out of turn, because again, that's, I think there is going to be some, I've been told that there will be some master plan committee that will, you know, address that issue as part of the whole,
Okay.
the whole big picture of it.
Good.
Long-term maintenance, that was my question.
Yeah.
Not, who's responsible, who's gonna upkeep in the long run? 10 years from now, the dock needs a few new boards or new footings for the observation tower.
One of the things, and you know, I know we all have our motivations for doing things. I would love to see this be essentially a headquarters for Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts in town. And you know, it's a natural space. It's you know, it's one that we're always creating projects that they need to achieve their criteria for different ranks in terms of community service hours. That includes, you know, the adults too, not just the scouts. And I've been accused of only recruiting kids that have parents that are contractors of some kind. It's not true, it seems that way sometimes, but that, you know, that is part of our mission in scouting in town, in particular, in this town in particular, and one that, you know, we play a big role in trying to promote that with other towns. And so, creating these different groups with synergistic missions, I think has gone a long way to have not just myself, you know, I always have this rule like, okay, I've got a good idea, but if struck by lightning, what are you guys gonna do, you know, if I'm not here to do this? So that's why we put these plans in place. Much like a master plan, we're developing that with Carver Trail Conservation Stewards, with Scouts, creating those partnerships that are not just one and dones, but they're something that gets created but then cultivated and then supported. Right now, supported through grants and the like, but you know, it's one of those dual-edged swords. You know, we've been asked to become part of some other groups that are going to have some say in this, and that's fine, but then my answer to them is like, well, buckle up, because if you want to be part of this, that means you have to ante up too, and one of the entities that wants to ante up is the town. So, you know, I've made promises from my end to make sure that either things are in-kind driven or grant-driven or some type of fundraiser, because I'm very sensitive to the point of not affecting town budget. But that is, you know, again, when things become a community project, I am the presenter, I might have the ideas and I can execute it and put it out there, but in the end, you know, I'm taking the scenic route to answer your question, but basically, putting those different apparatus in place is my effort to address that issue.
I like that it could potentially be home base for the Boy and Girl Scouts, or, I don't know, if we got 4F in the town, you know, youth oriented, but, I would like to think that, the town would waive any fees in regards to the use of the property if the maintenance is there for the long term. I don't expect them to be kicking out thousands of dollars to be
No.
replaced and stuff. But I expect general maintenance will go a long way to extending the life of the structures.
One more thing, Dan, I know you're on conservation, so you would know the answer to this, but I'm assuming all of the involvement with the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, if that's the long-term plan for that space, that all fits within the guidelines of conservation?
Yeah, I mean, any time that we're even on a property as a group, there are 2 to 3 phone calls that I always make. One, I call the police station to let them know, hey, we have an Eagle project going on, so there's a reason why you have a bunch of people, you know, parked up in this area. And then we will also check in with the conservation agent to let them know that we're on a conservation property. And then we'll let the, depending on, well, it used to be me calling leadership, I'm the leadership now, so I would get called, I would get called, now for that, so.
And I believe the mission of the Boys and Girl Scouts is very closely aligned with the Conservation Commission and their particular,
It is,
mission.
it is, and actually, if I may, we're, I think, improving and making more robust standards as we go as well. You know, we can't tell people what to do, but we can set the best example possible, and so I think that's what we're trying to do from our end, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Do I hear a motion to approve an outdoor classroom for the amount of $50,000?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
One abstention.
Oh, 701. Item E, Avenues of Honor. It's been discussed at length at the prior meeting and at other meetings. Any other discussion? Any other questions? This is coming out of historic funds.
Storage?
Yeah, so that will be up to the stewardship committee that will be formed when or if this gets voted through the town.
How are you gonna make up the stewardship committee, just out of curiosity?
Well.
Is it gonna be members of the community at large, or is it other community members?
I have a list of recommended groups that would be part of this. I'm going to, you know, the select board members of the select board have had some requests as to who was on. We agree on those, you know, obviously representative from the Veterans Office. I'd like a representative from the Historic Society, like a representative from the Cultural Council. You know, we would like 2 to 3 at-large members that are honorably discharged veterans that are part of the community, part
Could I
of this
make
as
a
well.
recommendation?
Please.
Maybe somehow also get the high school involved? Because I think it'd be a good teaching moment.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody, I had the honor of speaking one Veterans Day to the elementary school. Sort of as a veteran, what I think, you know, how you can best serve, and it was more along the lines of being a good citizen and listening to your parents and, you know, treating each other nice, because all that makes our effort feel worth it when we see kids acting that way. So it's not just high school, but I would feel younger even. So.
The poles right along the center, Main Street, you know, the fancy poles. They already have flags. Are they the same size, so you don't have to buy the frames for it?
So as it turns out, the brackets themselves, I haven't looked at those in particular, what type of brackets they have in terms of the actual flag poles, but the brackets themselves are roughly the same price within cents of each other, whether it goes onto a wooden pole or one of the, as you say, the fancier poles. So, you know, to address some other questions that have come up, you know, during previous meetings, you know, it's really important to know not just who's on this committee, but who is actually represented on those flags. And so, one way of honoring people is, I think the first thing is to ask them and their family if this is okay. You know, there's, I think, some historic record that would, and that's again up to the stewardship committee. I have my opinion. Sometimes, as I say, my opinions don't necessarily matter once we get to a certain point of things. I can make recommendations, but just like, you know, if we have a Revolutionary era or Civil War era veteran that we know is a Carver resident, we can seek out, you know, family, and get their opinion on things like that. But in general, I'd like to have as many eras represented as possible in this. But certainly, the reason why I want to have that request form as well is for families that have yet to be identified. There are a lot of veteran families in this town that I know that they're veterans, but the Veterans Office would not know that they're veterans because they haven't identified as one.
Sure.
So we want to make this as open as possible. And acquiring someone's DD 214 or service record is a very easy, it's a 3-click thing that can be done at the Veterans Office.
How are you gonna go about advertising this out? Because one thing we've learned on recreation, it doesn't matter how many times we put it in an agenda or put it on Facebook, people always say, how come we didn't know about this?
Well, you know, some type of shotgun approach between, actually, I'd like to have a local paper covering it. I'd like to have, there are various elements of social media, and then just getting the word out at town meeting to start. Getting the word out through, you know, different events. I run periodically free to veteran coffee hours that update people on services for veterans. And this would obviously be one thing to bring up. Just like it just came up that Vietnam veterans now can partake in what are called honor flights, which is a free flight down to DC
Right,
with
yep.
a family member. That just kicked off this past summer. But you don't know until you're at, I never even find these things out, and I'm involved with veteran programming until I'm at a big veteran conference and it just comes up, you know, so a lot of it's gonna be just word of mouth too.
Word of mouth.
So, one of the concerns about this is people's feelings being hurt because they're not included in this. That's why we're gonna have that mechanism in place.
Right.
That's a good thing, because some people will come forward.
Yep.
Because some things are important to them, other things aren't. It took me 25 years to get my dad's VA paperwork done, because he didn't want, he had in Vietnam injuries. But, you know, it took my letting him know about, you know, getting 10% off at Home Depot for him to just, all right, I'll just
It's
do
worth
it.
it.
I'll just do it,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, all my sister's dogging him about it too. So, the stewardship committee is a very important thing. That's a maintenance tool. And, you know, I would like that to be not some type of ad hoc committee, but again, something like the conservation stewards where, you know, where they become a committee that has a budget of some kind. And for that sole purpose.
What's the timeline we're looking at to establish how much of the funds you'll need? 2 years?
Yeah, inside, I'd say 18 months from July 1st, because that's when the funds are available, right? So,
You think you'll be hanging flags in 18 months from July 1st?
I wanna see the first 400 or 500 flags up, for Memorial Day, 24.
Good.
That's a realistic goal.
Good.
For that first block, yeah. There's no reason why that can't be done. So,
I think we should put a limit of, what, 2 years from town vote, or, I think you're gonna need, it doesn't hurt to have a little extra time.
Oh, yeah, no, hey, if you wanna have, you know, more time is great,
No, we don't.
because I have no idea how long it's gonna take to form that stewardship committee. I'd like, once this goes to vote, you know, say May 1st, you start getting the word out. Well, right now you start getting the word out, but sometime between May 1st and July 1st would be when hopefully they would have their first kind of meeting to start formulating their mission and to, and I can play a role in liaisoning all that until they kick me out.
And I'm not sure we're going to be needing to establish a time limit. I think we
That was,
can,
that was gonna be my question. Is it common practice for this committee to sunset funds?
no.
I didn't think so. That's
The
what
the
it
o-
is.
only way we sunsetted funds was when the town clerk, Lynn Doyle, left office and she hadn't spent her money, so we just took the money back.
Right.
I do like some time frame put in place, because if there is gonna be a stewardship committee, and I just don't want that committee to suffer from paralysis or analysis.
Right.
I'd like a little fire under their caboose so things do move along.
Well, I've written into the article that this program will establish a committee to oversee the implementation and ongoing maintenance.
Yeah.
And storage.
Yeah, there needs to be a supporting fund of some kind and storage. Now, that fund, can be a fundraiser fund, it doesn't have to be, I mean, there are 101 ways that it can be funded. But again, I leave it to the stewardship committee to decide on that.
Right, because the last sentence that I wrote in the article is said funds will be expended by this committee. So it's not being expended by, Dan Badger or the Community Preservation Committee. It's being expended by the committee that's established under this article.
So the need for funds would be to replace or add to the flags?
Well,
To get
as
the flags.
new participants come
Yeah.
into the roles. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, but this amount does cover everything that you have for the initial,
Right.
Up to, right
Plan,
now, up
yeah.
to 1,500 flags, two-sided flags, and custom with either a photograph or symbol of that era with the person's name, two-sided,
yeah,
on that flag with the bracket system, which
okay.
is more than 2/3 of the cost of each set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the bracket system.
Yeah.
So, once we have a series of bracket systems in place, we'll be able to leverage a lot, from a small fund.
All right, any other discussion?
Wait, so you're saying we're gonna be acting as a bank in perpetuity for this fund? Is that where we're at?
Well, Dan at the last meeting, I believe, said he expected most of this was gonna be expended within 2 years, and I'm not expecting perpetuity.
Yeah, no, and I, there are other projects that I've been involved with, not just with CPC, but others where, I like things to eventually have their own legs. So that would be the reason for having the stewardship committee, that'd be a reason for, developing a fund.
And one of the reasons why we actually have individual committee members overseeing is so that we can keep that fire lit
Yeah,
and keep things moving.
yeah.
Don't hear any other discussion for Avenues of Honor, $82,500 coming out of historic preservation funds. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. 701. The last proposal before us, I mentioned at our last meeting, was for the Pond Street soccer field reconstruction. I had, on my spreadsheet, I had $87,500. That's not right. It's $84,232 that they're asking for. It's for a feasibility study for doing the Pond Street field. Ron Griffin, when he was here in October, said that they were interested in the feasibility study, but only if we were seeing fit that in next year's budget, we would be able to expend between $500,000 and $600,000 to actually redo the fields, because it didn't make sense to do a feasibility study this year and then wait 3 or 4 years before we actually do it. my crystal ball says that, $500,000 to $600,000 for recreational fields a year from now is gonna be really tight. So I'm not sure that we as a committee ought to be spending money for a feasibility study this year when we don't think we would be able to fund it for next year.
Is it required to have a feasibility study?
Basically, what the feasibility study is doing is it's coming up with all the boilerplate paperwork, all of the specs, design specs, and everything else. So it's,
Because it was a field before.
right, but I believe they're just, I think they feel like they need it.
Okay.
But again, I'm not convinced that we have that our crystal ball is clear enough to see that we have that excess monies available, given the fact that we have no clue as to what other projects might be coming down the line. For this year, we have the money available, but for next year or the year after, I'm not sure. So,
Was he invited to the meeting tonight?
no,
Okay,
but he and I have corresponded.
okay.
And he was very clear that, if we're gonna do a feasibility study this year, it needs to be next year to the tune of $500,000 to $600,000.
We just
That-
can't
He was pretty much
And we
that when he
can't
made his
guarantee that.
presentation here.
Pardon?
He was pretty much that when he made his
Yeah.
presentation that
He was
night,
pretty
yeah.
clear.
So, what's the committee's desire?
He put in an application,
Mhm.
we should vote on it.
Agreed.
I agree.
I will make a motion to disapprove, or actually, I'll make it in the positive. In that way, I will make a motion to approve the feasibility study for the soccer field.
I'll second it for a vote.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
Aye. So, the request for the funds from the school committee fails 0 to 8. All right, that's the end of the individual votes. Now we actually have to take up the article, which I sent out to everybody 2 days ago, and asked you all to take a look at it. I tried to be
Can I read over your shoulder?
I tried to be as succinct as possible, and then tried to do up an informational summary on each one of the parts. Hopefully, you were able to look at your individual part and make a decision as to whether that was okay or not. I went back a third time to make sure that all the numbers that I have in the various parts are correct. Obviously, I know I've got to change some numbers.
This has to be changed, yeah.
But, parts B, C, D, E, and F are all basically, I put in where the monies were coming from, which fund it's coming from, so that it can help to explain to the town accountant where she should be taking the money from. Who the overseeing committee would be. So, for instance, the Part C, pickleball court, the last sentence said funds will be expended under the direction of the Recreation Committee. Part B is Union Society, and said funds will be expended under the direction of the Union Society at Carver. I didn't put down in the specific articles, but I put down in the informational summary that any monies not expended will revert back to the Community Preservation Committee. On each one of them, just in case the town council gets a hold of this again, he'll actually understand that these are not outright grants, they're amounts of money given out by the CPC, but if it's not utilized,
Reimbursement.
right.
I always consider it reimbursement.
right. So, I don't know whether anybody had any changes to the article or not.
Just the ones that I had
Yeah.
mentioned, that from nature's classroom to an outdoor classroom.
Yep.
For F,
I just changed that.
and then, of course, down to 50,000 again. for
Yeah,
F.
I'll change all those numbers.
Yeah, nature's classroom's gonna
Yeah.
change.
Do you have a wording for the committee that's gonna oversee the avenues of honor? It says this program will establish a committee, said funds will be expended by this committee. Just to make it a little bit more,
Yeah, I would like the word stewardship in there.
there you go,
Yeah.
thank you.
So you want to add it
And-
and
and
call it the
actually-
stewardship committee?
Yeah, and actually, and technically, they're not spending they're spending the money, but I think I'd like something redone in the verbiage with that because of how it's gonna be spaced out. Or if you all think that that's fine.
I
I
think
think
it's
Should
fine.
be fine.
Okay.
It's not gonna change who's spending the money, right?
Yep,
No, and I think if we're sticking to our habit too of, we're gonna pick somebody besides me to be the liaison between the committee and the project as well, right?
Mhm.
So, okay.
Dan,
Yeah.
is the proper name of the cultural, is it council or committee? In E, it's referred to as committee, and I just didn't
I
know
thought
if
it
that
was
was the
council.
It's a
proper.
council,
Okay, that's what I thought.
yeah. Thank you.
So,
And the Veterans Networking Collaborative, by the way, that's something I started. That's the networking coffee hour thing, in case folks were wondering that. So. And actually, Lisa Erickson, who's the assistant veteran service officer in town, is actually the admin for its communication with the town, so.
okay, so, if anybody else has any specific edits, please get them to me. I'm gonna try to get this into Elaine Weston by sometime next week, so that she can get it into the warrant. And we can get Greg Corbo to go over it and say he likes it or he doesn't like it.
But he doesn't get a
I'm
vote.
not sure he doesn't like anything.
Yeah, well, he's the one who
No, I know.
gave the Union Society a grant. But I boilerplated this from last year's article. And obviously, besides having just one informational summary, we came up with a bunch more for various projects this year. So, that said, do I hear a motion to approve the article for submission?
I'll make a motion to approve the article with the edits that we talked about for submission to this year's annual town meeting.
Second.
Second.
Everybody second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. So voted unanimously. And I don't know that, 2 weeks ago, we had our discussion of the old business, so I'm not sure we need to go through that again. We do need to come up with a meeting date for our next meeting.
I do have one other thing.
Oh.
Is there other?
Yep, other issues?
Other issues. I'd like the committee maybe at a future meeting to talk again about ordering some funded by CPC signs, which we used to do on all our projects, and I think we utilized all our signs and have kind of gotten away from that. And I'd like to talk about whether or not the committee feels that they'd like to go back to that.
Oh, I definitely think it makes sense.
We never got the one for the playground.
So I just think that should be part of our regular, you know, every time we do a project, there goes the sign.
Yep.
So,
I mean, we could get someone could get in touch with Peter Allegrini and see if he,
You want me to get a hold of him and get some pricing?
Sure.
Sure. How many signs do you think we'd want? 15?
Oh, I think we should work on
two,
an individual basis type
So we have
deal.
him print one every time? I bet that's gonna be way more
Yeah,
expensive than doing a block of
I'd
signs.
say-
Do a dozen or something.
I'd say
for now.
get, 5 or 6, as like a backup. Because
So one,
I'm looking at
well, yep,
pickleball, Adirondack-style shelters, nature's classroom. So if we got 5 or 6, then we'd have 3 excess.
3 of that, okay, I will do that.
And then the playground could get their sign.
Yes. Yeah, and then, eventually this spring, I'd like to see one in front of Green Street. And, I
Yeah.
don't think we need one out at the suspension bridge, but one thing I was gonna say regarding signage is we have some extra materials from a different project I was working on, and so we're gonna have Lost Boot Bridge, actual sign, set up near the bridge sometime during summer when we get to it.
Okay, good.
Mr. Chairman, I know this isn't an open meeting, but I have some information that might be useful to this group regarding monies that were given out a couple years ago to the Buzzard Bay Coalition. I was driving by Lakeview Street last week, and I happened to see a Buzzard Bay Coalition truck with people standing around it. So I stopped, turned around, went back and introduced myself and asked them what's going on. And they were there to clear the trails, to work back in the trails. I asked them about parking, and they said their near-term solution to the parking is to leave it as it is for now, because they realize how many fishermen use it for parking their trailers. They are still going to put parking on the Main Street side near the fire station, but they have no plans to redesign the parking right now. So it seems to me that for this summer at least, it will be the way it is. So there is a little bit of action there. These weren't high-level people there. They were people who were working, but they were aware of all of the talks that had gone on around it before. So I just felt that you'd like to know.
Great.
But I know
Thank
that
you.
you brought it up the last meeting, that you
Yeah.
hadn't heard anything.
Yep. Well, thank you.
And, conservation is involved as well in that, so when I saw the truck, I slammed on the brakes.
Well, great, thank you.
There's conservation land that they're walking past.
So, next meeting,
What do we usually do
the
Tuesday,
fourth
Thursday,
Thursday, which would be the 23rd of March.
23rd?
How does that work with people?
That works for me.
Looks good now.
That was the
7.
last meeting prior to town meeting, right?
Yes, it will.
Yeah, town meeting is April 11th, I think,
11, yeah.
at 6.
12th and 13th.
Oh, shush.
11.
Yeah, better not be 12th and
I
13th.
know.
All right, any other business? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Area 58.